On today's show, the Nuggets get eaten up by the Wolves. What happened to Jokic and the championship crew? And then, did the refs ruin the end of Knicks Pacers? Did they give the Knicks the win? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You're locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On NBA your first listen today, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform, like the video on YouTube, comment anything below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And joining me, as always, on a Monday night tonight, Tuesday day, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
BBL Drizzy. BBL Drizzy.
It's a free beat, right? We can't get copyright strike on.
I don't think we can get no. I mean, listen, everybody's got a rap on it. The whole world is dissing Drake. I need that intro beat.
I've seen French rappers over it. I've seen Japanese rappers over it. I've seen a saxophone. I've seen everything over that.
Blue Drizzy. Chocolate blue
Le baguette Drizzy.
Is that the Rudy Gobert version?
Microsoft.
Rudy Gobert, first child. Shout out.
Shout out
to Rudy Gobert, first child.
Anti-shout out to Gobert Arenas.
Oh.
Today's episode, we'll talk about the Knicks versus the Pacers. The Knicks get the win, but shrouded in controversy at the end of that game. We'll talk about that. What happened at the end of that game. Of course, we'll play Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Jason Kidd getting a contract extension, and then the GMs of the league are going off on their own players. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Pat, let's start here. The Denver Nuggets. If you've listened to Locked On Nuggets, love those boys. Matt, Adam, Swipa, all of them are on Locked On NBA at one given time or another. They've been talking like this team is the Thanos inevitable champions all year, that there was just no chance that this team would lose to any of the teams in the West, that this team was inevitable, that Jokic is a supercomputer that cannot be solved and all that. And here they are, down 0 games to 2. And they only score 15 points in a quarter and 20 points in the first and the fourth quarter in this game. Only 80 points, the smallest amount of points they've scored all season to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both games at home, in the altitude, and all that. My question is, who ate more nuggets up tonight? Charles Barkley or Anthony Edwards?
Oh, Chuck taking a shot. I heard there were a lot of nuggets on that.
He had like inside the NBA. He had an entire tray that was like, you know, when you get catering from Chick-fil-A or something, and there's just like an entire
See, here's the thing. We are not judging Chuck for that, because you know that is a tray that every time you walk past, you got to go, let me get a couple of these. Five.
Oh, you eat them all up. I'm just saying, who ate up more nuggets, Chuck or Anthony Edwards?
I think Chuck ate more, Ant ate bigger nuggets. You know what I mean? Is that crazy? Was that crazy?
No.
Just in case. Just in case. You never
checks out. It checks out.
It checks out. I appreciate that. No, I mean, listen, this has been an amazing start to a series, not because it has looked like the Denver Nuggets, the wheels have fallen off. It has legitimately looked like the question that we asked heading into this playoff series is being answered. Can you still dominate teams defensively and score enough to get the job done? That was the biggest question on Minnesota. Where was the offense going to come from? But I'll tell you what, you don't need nearly as much offense. That 115 offensive rating with Cat, without Cat, doesn't matter when you hold a team to 80 points. The best quarter that the Denver Nuggets had in this game was the third quarter. They end up scoring 25. It felt like they were going to go on a little bit of a run. And guess what? That quarter, they still ended up turning the ball over 3 times. 16 turnovers in this entire game.
Cut the lead to 21 in the third quarter.
Bang! Cuts the lead to 21.
And Chris Paul with a 3 cuts the lead. It's like, Man, and without Rudy Gobert, we didn't even mention like that Rudy Gobert. Well, you mentioned that he was.
Well, I mentioned in the intro. Yeah.
Congrats to the birth of his first child, but he was not even in the game. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, and they just had the best defensive performance of their whole season. I mean, it was.
Is he going to win it?
Yeah. Who else?
Think so? Wemby?
He just won Rookie of the Year.
We're not giving. I mean, listen.
I don't think Wemby will get it. I think Wemby should get it because I think his impact.
It's tough.
And
anyway, I digress.
The voters have already voted, and tonight's game would have given him some ammo if he wanted to use it. Like, hey, look, they had their best defensive game of the season, and they were just hounding the Nuggets. I mean, they were absolutely hounding them. And what really stood out to me the most is what Adam Mara said on Twitter, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On NBA. He said, "We have never seen the Nuggets unravel like this. Completely shook. This Timberwolves defense has squashed them." And that's exactly what happened. There was so much ball pressure. There was so many guys flying all over the place. They contested every single shot. They were absolutely all over the place tonight. They finished with what? They had 12 blocks, 11 steals.
Yeah.
23 times the Nuggets went down the floor and their whole possession just got blown up because of something. There was a play where in the second quarter, minute 30 left, Naz Reid blocks Jokic twice on the same play. And you just look at it, you go, man, who is this team? And there are times when this Nuggets team, and yes, Jamal Murray has been dealing with a calf thing, and this Nuggets team is not very deep and all that. And so when one guy is kind of hobbled, it really, really shows a lot throughout the rest of their team. But there are just times when like Jokic is just not as aggressive as you really need him to be, especially scoring the ball. I mean, he had in the first half, he finished with, he was 3 of 8. He had 8 points. And you're like, man, that's just not going to be enough when Jamal Murray goes 1 of 10 for 2 points and he's hobbling. Like, you just need to pick up the pace there. And I know Jokic has his own methods and all that, and he, goes about the game. But like at a certain point, you got to have the MVP, the 3-time MVP coming up soon, probably right now, to step up and step in and really take over in moments. And he just never, ever did that in this game.
Is this the third week in the row of me saying this? We might need to hit the bell on this if this is correct. Your number one player on your team should never have less than 15 shots. I believe this is my third week in a row saying this. I talked about this with Paul George. I talked about this. I believe I talked about this with Anthony Edwards playoff starting, right? What are we doing? Where's the confusion? And I understand Jokic is trying to get everybody else involved, but at a certain point, it's not about getting everybody else involved. And I will say, I don't know what was going on. I don't know if Jokic is dealing with this, and let me know if you guys saw this as well. He looked very lethargic in that second half to me. He looked almost like he was tired, like he was
playing in altitude, and he
no, you know what I'm saying?
Well, he was.
But it looked like, right, and we've heard Kevin Garnett talk about this, and a lot of NBA players talk about this, when you're always on your back foot and you're always running back on defense, you look so much more winded. It got to a point at the end of that first half where legitimately Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander, everybody on the team is like, where's Jokic? We're attacking him. He's exhausted. We're going right at him. I thought Nikola Jokic needed to do so much more tonight. Basically didn't exist in the game tonight. He took 13 shots. Unacceptable. I don't care if you start pulling threes. Absolutely. Now, he got to the free throw line 6 more times, right? And that makes a bit of a difference. But
6.
I mean, 3 more times. I'm sorry. He went 6 for 6. He got to the free throw line 3 more times. But like, what are we doing here? Are we confused on who you are?
We've seen this in so many different playoff series right now and throughout time, is that teams will latch onto their star player and gain a ton of confidence. All these role players, they look at Anthony Edwards and they look at him shrugging down the floor, and you go, man, we can do anything. If this guy is playing at this level, look at Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. We're about to talk about them. If Jalen Brunson can do that, we can do anything in this sense. Like Kyrie Irving's doing that, we can do anything, against this Clippers team from the Mavericks point of view. I was going to give a Bulls example, and then I decided not to make you sad. So,
bastard. You bastard.
But on the Timberwolves side, I gotta quick count it up because I can't fit it into the third segment. Anthony Edwards on the MJ comparisons earlier today said, "I want it to stop. He's the greatest of all time. I can't be compared to him." But my question is, count it up. Then why do the shrug down the court?
Thank you, Doug. Come Come on, bro. You know what you're doing. Here's the thing. I knew he knew what he was doing because he shrugged and laughed as he did it. Now, knocked down the three. Nasty shot.
Yeah, it was
crazy
a great shot.
move. He was going insane all night. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, he looked like he was dealing with a shoulder thing kind of going into that third quarter, and it did not affect him in the slightest. Yeah, I don't know if there was some Toradol involved in that. He just fought through it. Is that illegal in the NBA? Toradol's not illegal, is it?
I don't think so.
I think Toradol's good, right? It's just
anytime you use a medical term like that, just throws me.
I know sports a little bit, dog. I mean, I do this show with you a lot.
I know, but when do you use like the medical term for it? It's like when you call salt. It's like
football.
It's like when you call salt sodium chloride. It's like
sodium chloride.
What?
Like, a little sodium chloride in there.
You Jimmy Neutron over there.
Just sprinkle it over the top. Yeah, I mean, let it fall off the shoulder.
What would stop the MJ comparisons? Would a DNA test be enough?
So I don't know if you guys know this, but me and Hayes went down a rabbit hole on Locked On Bulls. Oh, you know what? We did it pre-Locked On Bulls. We went down a rabbit hole because the Jimmy Butler. Remember, Jimmy Butler was the first player to kind of get these, right?
Yep.
MJ was it. He played San Antonio 9 months before, so he was in Texas 9 months before Jimmy Butler was born. We did this with Ant. He was not in Atlanta 9 months before Anthony Edwards was born. They did play Atlanta, but it was in Washington.
It's not enough.
Because Jordan would have been on the Wizards. So take that for what you will. That's not my baby.
I'm going to need a DNA test, turns out. Coming up, let's talk about the Knicks and the Pacers. Knicks get the win, but should we put an asterisk next to it? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
It said asterisk, right?
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp will help you if you have issues that you need to talk through. If you have something in your life that you know that you need to work through, that you need to get off your chest. I went to therapy today and it's online. It's just like BetterHelp. I've used BetterHelp before. I enjoy the service where you're able to schedule it at whatever time you need and you're able to talk through something with somebody that can be there, can be unbiased, but also is invested in you and invested in what you have walked through. And they take notes. And today my therapist brought up something from like 8 months ago. And I really appreciated that they had those notes and that they had all that. Whereas a friend may not have remembered that if I was talking through something like this with a friend. So therapy can be different for everybody. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams. It's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. You can change it anytime. You can change the time. You can change the I can't change the place. It's online, but you can change the therapist that you work with. You can change it all the time. They understand that you're going to not vibe with some people and you're going to vibe with others. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. Check out BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA.
What are we talking about? Practice?
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of the show, listening every day, being an everydayer. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Check the link in the description to find a show that covers your team every day. We got Locked On Nuggets, got Locked On Wolves, got Locked On Bulls, got Locked On Pacers, got Locked On Knicks. Locked On Pacers, Tony East is in New York, and he got to see this wild ending to this game where the Knicks get the win. And this one, the Knicks win 121-117 in this one on some really clutch plays. But it came on the back of some controversy as well. With a minute left, it's tied 113-113. Dante DiVincenzo hits a big three with 39 seconds left. Siakam goes right at OG, his former teammate, and hits a layup. It's a 1-point game. And then you get the Knicks challenge. And you get the Knicks challenge on the ball that went off of the foot of, was it Nembhard? And you had
Andrew
that
Nembhard,
call.
yep.
You had that call that was made. Then the Knicks turn it over, and then you get the moving screen on Miles Turner. I think that's where most of the controversy is coming from right now. First of all, do you think it was a moving screen on Miles Turner?
Absolutely. You cannot set a screen outside of your body. You cannot move your body while setting a screen. Like,
talk about a sports phrase.
Literally,
talk about a sports phrase that means nothing. You can't set a screen outside of your body. What does that even mean?
When you're setting a screen, your legs cannot be outside of your shoulder width. That's
tell that to Rudy Gobert on every screen he ever sets his whole life.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't disagree with you there. But no, it was a moving screen. I guess here's my problem with people that have a problem with this call. We get so mad when refs miss calls.
Yeah.
And then we get so mad when refs call a call by the letter of the law. How do we want them to call this? By every definition of a moving screen, this is a moving screen. But because it was in the waning moments at the end of a game, how can you call that? But if I'm the New York Knicks fan, how do you not call that? It's a moving screen that's literally opening up. And my favorite part about it is, right, remember when that Stephen Curry shot where like he's coming off and there's like 17 moving screens to get him open. And who are they playing? Were they playing Phoenix? Every fan in the world is like, how do you miss that man? He's not there. Oh my God. What do y'all want them to do? Listen, I'm fine with killing refs, but at a certain point, we got to say if it's
Excuse me.
Well, you know what I mean.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm fine with killing them on the court. I don't know if that's better, but like let's
more cameras
kill them
that way.
Let's kill them for getting their job wrong. Let's not kill them for making the right call.
My thing on this is what Miles Turner said after the game. He said, I think it's best when the players decide the outcome of the game. And that is a classic example of the players not deciding the outcome. Yes, letter of the law, if you go to the smallest little thing, yes, it is. And they went and challenged it. Indiana challenged this play, and Zach Zarba and crew went to it and said that it was a moving screen. It was an unsuccessful challenge. So they went and they did it. The thing is, it just what happened to the game I love. It's like it feels like that kind of moment where you're like, you just want to see an actual clutch moment where the players have to come up big, and it's up to the players and not up to the referees to call stuff like that, especially like that far away from the play or like that far away from the basket. It's just a weird thing. But
so let me ask you this.
Not the reason they lost, but there's
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. How many Nuggets fans tonight do you think are upset for calling it how you want them to call it? Because not because it was close, but the entire game, weren't you sitting there going, "Oh, that's a lot of contact." That's a lot of contact.
They scored 30 points in the first 21 minutes of the game.
Absolutely, because one of the best defenses in the world was allowed to beat them up, was allowed to really go at them,
They were
was
very
allowed
physical.
to put pressure. It was a very physical game. It's to the point where we saw Mike Malone run out on the court like, "How are you missing these calls?" He's ready to smack people upside the head.
So that's the thing. Would you want that to be a tech? That should be a letter of the law tech right there.
No, letter of the law tech. I'm glad it wasn't a tech. But here's my thing. If you're sitting here and you're looking at, we're going to call this by the letter of the law, or we're going to leave it loose, everybody's upset no matter what. I want it to be called how the game was called. I believe that play was called how the game was called. I believe the no tech on Mike Malone was called how most of the game was called. Players can adjust, especially at a professional level, if you allow them to say, okay, so this is how we play in the game, this is how we call in the game. I bet I can adjust my game to fit how you're calling it. I can't adjust if on the one half of the game you're calling it tight and on the other half you're calling it loose.
Oh, like the refs have never done that ever. Every game.
I think that they've done that, but I don't think that happened in this Knicks. Would you say that happened in this Knicks game? I think that call was par for how they called.
If his feet are like 6 inches closer together, is this a moving screen?
I think the leaning into the guy calls it a moving screen. I don't think it has anything to do with
his feet. His feet are 6 inches closer together, and his body is 15 degrees more upright. Is this a moving screen?
Yes,
like
that
that's
is a
so
straight
minuscule. That's such a minuscule like angle and minuscule distance to me that it's like, okay, you can let some stuff slide. You know, you can't call every hold on the offensive line. You know, you can't call everything.
I hear you, but I feel like it was par for how this game was called the entire way. Right, you got to know in that
because they messed up. Because they messed up a bunch.
Well, that's a whole different thing. But I mean, that's a whole different thing. But I feel like this game was called very tight. You have to know as a player going into that. And I would say to Rick Carlisle as a coach, you have to go into that and say, listen, they're calling this game this way. We have to make sure that we're on point. Right? You have to reiterate that because that's how that referee crew is calling the game. You can't your game can't change because of how the refs are calling the game. You just have to adapt to what they're doing so that you can get through it.
Did you see what Rick Carlisle said after the game?
What did he say?
I don't want to talk about the officiating. We're not expecting to get calls in here. It would be nice if they laid off that one, but they didn't. That's just the way it goes. We challenged it. They reviewed it. That's the way it goes.
And still had an opportunity to win. You know the call that helps you lose that game, that probably loses you that game? A dumb foul before the inbound pass.
Hey, you know what actually loses you the game? If Tyrese Haliburton has it takes 6 shots in the game. Tyrese Haliburton in the fourth quarter takes 0 shots. I mean, that to me is the reason they lost this game is they got almost nothing from Tyrese Haliburton. They got 6 points. He got 8 assists, hit 2 threes, 3 turnovers. He was a -12 in the game in the minutes that he played. I mean, that to me that's where I'm looking first if I'm the Pacers and going, all right, well, what the hell happened here? Like, is it still the hamstring thing? He was not so great in the first round series against the Milwaukee Bucks, but they're going to need better from him.
I would say my biggest question on Haliburton is the hamstring thing something that he's just fighting through right now? And if that is the case, why have we not adjusted the game plan around him? Because there's so much.
They almost won this game. I mean, they have. I mean, he only took 6 shots. So to me, that's adjusting the game plan.
But I feel like there's still this reliance on we need somebody to be Superman, and you're not seeing somebody else step up in those moments to me.
Well, Siakam is definitely that's
been the Pacers' problem for. I mean, listen, they get through the series versus the Bucks, but the entire time I'm like, all right, who's going to step up outside of Tyrese Haliburton? Yeah. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to take the reins of this team, because I watched Haliburton up close when he played the Bulls, and I think this was probably 10 games after he came back from the hamstring injury, and I literally was like, he doesn't look the same, and he has looked just like that since then.
Yeah. Well, if the one guy that is going to step up, it should be the guy that wants $40 million next year, and that's Pascal Siakam. I mean, if you're looking at somebody, but. There you go. We talked all about the Pacers. We didn't get to the Knicks at all. Congrats to the Knicks.
Hey, the Knicks won. Hey, listen, I'm gonna say this before we get to the next segment, before we get to count it up. Josh Hart, best player from Lake County ever. Grew up in Lake County. Shout out to Josh Hart. You're making me root for the Knicks. I hate you, but you're from my county.
I saw somebody on Twitter say that
you play against them.
I saw somebody on Twitter say that Josh Hart is the Kobe Bryant of Keith Bogans.
Ooh, nah. Maybe.
Coming up, let's play Count It Up, where we count up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including, did the Mavs overreact giving Jason Kidd a contract extension? Talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Your mom deserves something good for Mother's Day. She deserves something good. If you live in a different state than your mom or a different city than your mom, I live in a different state than my mom, and I don't know how I'm going to send her stuff, but I will after I finish this DoorDash read, because that's exactly what I'm going to do is get her DoorDash. You can pair flowers with the gift card so she can celebrate the way that she wants. If she's a bookworm, you can go to a bookstore. You don't have to just go to get a meal or get food from DoorDash. You can get all kinds of stuff too. They do retail, they do convenience stores, they do all kinds of stuff, so you can get your mom the gift that she deserves, and it arrives right to her door with DoorDash. You can also schedule in advance with DoorDash as well. You can do a week in advance on that too, so you know that you have it covered and you know that it's going to be taken care of for you. So order now, get everything you need for Mother's Day on DoorDash. Use that code LOCKEDONNBA and get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. Use that code LOCKEDONNBA. Order now from DoorDash today. Terms apply. Again, DoorDash, use that code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, it's that time of the week where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, walking through some of the best things that happened this week. And this week, it's all about, we'll first talk about Jason Kidd, but then we'll also talk about the GMs going nuts. It's
Big Chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it up.
The Dallas Mavericks gave Jason Kidd a multi-year contract extension. My question to you is simply,
Count it up.
Is this an overreaction for the Mavs on their current playoff success, or the Lakers' job opening up, or neither?
I don't think this is a Lakers job opening up situation. But I do think that this is a bit of an overreaction. No, I think there's a bit of an overreaction because we act like we haven't seen the other side of Jason Kidd show its head multiple times, right? The side where he's just not coaching, where he looks like the Darvin Ham, where he looks like he's got his hands in his pockets. I get that this has finally hit a groove, but I don't know if this is a championship groove.
Where Jason Kidd would say something like this.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
I just listen. My opinion on Jason Kidd has been stated many times on this podcast, been stated many times on many podcasts. I mean, like, I just think that Jason Kidd is a okay coach with some really good players that are by his side. When you have Luka Doncic and you have Kyrie Irving and you get guys in there finally who are a little bit more defensive minded, guess what? You're going to win more games. I don't know if this is a championship run though, and we're extending a guy who, to me, is the least impactful part of any of this. Like, what has been Jason Kidd's best coaching moment of the playoffs?
The thing about Jason Kidd is that it is going well with Luka and Kyrie. And they're playing well together. They're working well together. And sometimes that's all you need on your team. And so I understand them giving contract extension. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to the playoff success right now. But if you look at Jason Kidd and you look at the job he's done 2 years ago, 52 wins with Luka and a young emerging Brunson who had not even been anywhere close to an all-star and got outplayed, got played off the floor in the playoffs the year before. And he got that team with Luka, a young Jalen Brunson, and Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleba, and Spencer Dinwiddie to the Western Conference Finals. And then they missed the postseason last year entirely. The lows are low for Jason Kidd. And then this year, they're back up. They get players back. They're back up to 50 wins. They had to deal with injuries from all these guys. So, like, Jason Kidd, he's created a great defense around Luka and Kyrie. They were the number one defense the last couple of months of the season. So he starts to check some of the boxes. And so you go, all right, man, well, what else are you going to ask him to do? Yeah, you'd want him to be a little bit more innovative on offense. You'd want him to coach in some of these games and, like, push these guys in some of these games where it just doesn't look like they have anything and they lose these winnable games where the star players and the other teams aren't playing and weird things like that happen. But he's checked enough boxes to me that they give him this extension, and could it be a thing down the road? My big thing about this contract extension is, though, can they fire him down the road? If it starts to go bad again, like it did last year, starts to get down there, how entrenched does he get in this organization where he's part of the actual, like, brain trust of, Cuban, I guess, still, and Nico Harrison and them? I mean, Dirk brought him in. He, like, kind of handpicked him as the coach. He won a title in 2011. He's part of this. He was sort of a package deal with Nico Harrison. Like, does he get entrenched too much to the point where you can't move on from him if it ends up being like it was last year, or if something like that happens again? And so that's where we are with Jason Kidd. And I know you have something else to say, but I want to talk about some of these other ones.
No, I'm not even going to listen. I've said my piece on Jason Kidd, and I don't think it's changed. He is who he is.
Our old friend Keith Pompey reported this. Daryl Morey said about the Buddy Hield acquisition, I think the fit was less good than I thought. My question is,
Count it up.
have you ever heard a president of basketball operations admit that one of his trades had gone bad when the player was still on the team?
Listen, you should have known the fit was bad when he smiled at you. The teeth don't fit in his mouth. You knew the fit wasn't going to work for this guy. Should
have been bad when he aged 2 years in one day.
What did you think Buddy Hield was going to add to this team? More shooting, more like
yes, that thing.
I mean, but here's the.
It's not even about Buddy. This whole thing is not about Buddy Hield to me. It's that Daryl Morey was like, he wasn't as good of a fit as I thought. Now, he is a free agent. I'll put it that way. He's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, what I mean? He's
still,
not going to bring him back. Like,
I guess not. Can you bring him back if you go, he's a worse fit than I thought?
I mean, listen, money cures all. So if you pay him enough, you can bring him back for whatever. But my thing is Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey to me builds shotgun teams. He lets off the first round and then he goes, all right, how do we reload? Yeah, I mean, like I've never watched somebody build a team worse that has so many good players on it and find a way to continually screw it up. We get rid of Doc Rivers. What are we going to go do? We're going to go get the other guy who underachieved when his superstar left him. That's the answer. We get rid of James Harden. What are we going to do? We're going to go get the other guy who let his team down shooting multiple times.
Pat Riely went off today on the Miami Heat exit interviews. He was asked about Jimmy Butler trolling the Celtics when he couldn't play in the series. We talked about that, his Instagram post about Jalen Brown and all that. And Pat Riely said this: if you're not on the court playing, you should keep your mouth shut.
Count it up.
Do you agree with Riely, or is this going a little too far?
If you're not on the court playing, you should keep your mouth shut.
If you're not on the court playing, you should keep your mouth shut.
I agree with Pat, I guess, because you can't impact the series off of the court. I clearly Jimmy Butler was a little bit inebriated when he said these comments. Yeah,
also, Jamal Murray disagrees with you on not being able to affect the game off the court because he threw a heat pack onto the court today.
That was crazy. That was crazy. I don't know no text thrown at all, but Reggie Jackson is up, or was it KCP? KCP ends up snapping. We're teching everybody up. I don't know, but no, I just I don't know. This was a weird situation. I think that Jimmy was kind of like being Jimmy, and Pat should know that about his player. But I do agree with him that it's a bad look for your team if, hey, we could have beat the Knicks, who are in the next round, and we could have beat Boston, who you just got your butts kicked by and barely scored, if I'm on the court. Okay, cool. Like, I appreciate the confidence, but at this point, we're sitting at home and we're probably bringing you back for an exorbitant amount of money because we're not trading you.
Pat Riely also said about Tyler Hero, maybe one day he will surprise everyone and play every game. I don't even have it counted up for that. I just wanted to say that was the quote.
Pat Riley's harsh, bro, and I respect it. Listen, that's how he's been successful. That's how he's won. I don't expect him to change who he is. I don't expect him to change how he goes about building these teams. I don't expect him to change what he expects from his team. Pat Riely is a hard-nosed guy who's going to be tough on his team, who wants to see them be just as hardened as he is. And you know what? The Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler or not. Like, I think that I'll bet you Pat Riely was surprised to see how flimsy that team was in the postseason without Jimmy.
Yeah,
seeing how stout they were without Jimmy during the regular season. Like, I'll bet you he was very surprised at that.
Tyler Hero only played 42 games this season. He played 67 last year and 66. So last 3 years he would not have qualified for any kind of award or anything like that. So I'm kind of with Pat Riely on
67. He would have.
Oh yeah,
65 is the minimum. 67 he would have.
I don't know why. In my head it was 68. I don't know why. There you go, Pat Riely. Pat Riely going off.
Was he a 6'9" guy?
Going off on his own players. Let us know in the comment section what you think about all that. And then go check out Locked On Bulls. All kinds of stuff on Locked On Bulls, talking about their offseason, trading Zach LaVine. Continue to cover Mavs versus Thunder. I'll be in OKC tomorrow, so go listen to Locked On Mavs. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bang, bang.
Boom! Not as good of a fit as I thought.